Our opening words this morning are titled, "Resistance is Futile." "We want to give you an update on our progress," the captain said over the PA. A silent groan went through the passengers. The word update meant the problem wasn't fixed. I was on a plane, sitting on the tarmac, trying to get to the East Coast, where I was officiating at my nephew's wedding. We took off nearly an hour behind schedule. My itinerary gave me an hour in Houston before a connecting flight left. I'd hoped to get something to eat. Instead, I barely made the plane. I like to look out airplane windows. The woman by the window closed the shade so she could watch a movie. The woman on the right of me had 3 martinis and laughed constantly as she watched her movie. I wasn't interested in a movie. I read a little, slept a little, worked on my computer a little. Nothing was satisfying. There was nothing left for me to do but meditate. I didn't want to meditate because there was so much aversion inside me about all the things that hadn't gone the way I wanted. When I closed my eyes, I was too worn to fight the aversion, so I didn't try. I just felt the cranky thoughts and relaxed. The aversion wasn't that pack of grubby monsters that I'd feared. It was like a 4-year-old complaining that Dad had cut the crust off the bread of his sandwich. It was sad, but kind of sweet and endearing. I remembered that crucial meditation lesson. Resistance is futile. Fighting reality, wanting things to be different than they are, is what Jean Houston calls schlock suffering. Life has its unavoidable discomforts, but it doesn't turn into anguish unless we have the hubris to think it should be different just because we want it to be different. Aversion is like an ocean wave rolling towards us. We can try to run from it, but it's likely to catch us from behind, sweep us away, or knock us flat. The Buddha recommended turning toward discomfort and getting to know it, even if that means diving into the wave. Then we experience its true nature. Water that passes by in a rush, not so bad after all. Sitting on the plane, I learned this again for the 1,000th time. Old habits of turning away are deeply conditioned. I have to learn it over and over until relaxing into the wave becomes a deeper habit. It was almost midnight when my sister finally picked me up at the airport. I was worn, tired, hungry, and unexpectedly light in spirit. Those words are from Doug Kraft. Will you now please join me in our opening hymn, "I Know This Rose Will Open"? It's a short one, number 396 in your gray hymnal. We can sing it. You can remain standing or rise again as able to join in our unison affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor y ayudarnos los unos a los otros. Welcome. Welcome to First Parish in Bedford, a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Welcome if you are trying to fight the waves of your life and running from them. Welcome if you are diving in and embracing it. And welcome if you are surfing along on top feeling good. We welcome everyone wherever you are on your spiritual journey, whatever identities you bring into this space, whatever life experiences you bring. We are glad that you are here with us this morning. I want to invite you to a couple of musical events that are coming up. There's so many musical events this time of year, which I think is a delight because I love music. One is coming right up. We will be at the VA hospital on Tuesday evening. The choir will be performing a holiday concert, as is our tradition. And so it would be wonderful if you want to join us. I'll be there. And that will be at 6:30 p.m. with music readings and holiday cheer. And then on Saturday afternoon, the Back Bay Ringers are returning. So that will be a fun holiday celebration right here at 2 p.m. The proceeds go to First Parish, so you can get some good music, support this congregation, and then you can stick around for the tree lighting. There will be some hot cocoa happening, so a good time will be had. And also, just to let you know, after the service today, there is a blood pressure clinic, and it is in John's office and not mine, where it often is, so don't be confused. It is happening after church. And with that, we are going to move into our time for all ages. So, I'm going to use this one. I'm going to switch over. Are we on? We good? No. Am I good? I'll just keep going. So, on an airplane. Now, how many of you have ever been stuck in some kind of transportation, an airplane, a bus, a car, a train, and it was not going the way you wanted it to go? Oh, there we go. Now I'm on. Okay. Yeah. That was almost all of us, I think. I think almost all of us have been stuck somewhere and we didn't want to be there. Well, I have a question for the younger folks in the room. We'll see if you have any answers first before we ask any adults. Do you have anything that you like to try to do when you're stuck somewhere and you don't want to be stuck there? Is there anything you like to do to try to make it go better? Does anybody have ideas? Yeah, over there. Yeah. Can you shout it out? You like to read. That is a great thing to do. That really helps me when I'm stuck somewhere. If I can read, then I'm doing something that kind of takes me away to another place. Does anybody else have ideas of what you can do when you're stuck somewhere? You have another idea? Yeah. Drawing. Yes. Moira, my kid, is a big fan of drawing to pass the time. Yeah, what do you do? Writing. That's another great one. That can be a really nice opportunity if you can write. Some people can't write in a vehicle if it's moving. I get sick if I try to do that, but depends. If the car is totally stopped, maybe it'll work. Anybody else have any ideas of what you can do? Sleep. Sleep. Time-honored way to pass the time in transit. So I like to do all those things. I like to read, and I like to write, and I like to sleep if I'm stuck somewhere I don't want to be, if possible. And another thing that I like to try to do is use music. Now, sometimes it's not really appropriate to sing out loud because maybe you're on an airplane and not everybody wants to sing your song, so maybe that's a time for headphones. But sometimes if I'm with a group and we're waiting somewhere and we really don't want to be there, one thing I like to do is to sing together. And I think to me, that's kind of like the meditation that the man in the story talked about. He was doing, I think, a Buddhist form of meditation practice, and I think that's also a wonderful idea. And I'm not very good at that. I should probably practice it more. But one thing I do like to do is the singing. So I want to teach a song this morning that we're going to sing later in the service. But I think it's a good song for when you're not where you want to be yet, but you want to keep going. So the words, I hope, actually, I didn't even check. Are they in our order of service? They should be. Good. Oh, good. Yes, they are. Great. So there's words, but I'm also going to teach the words. So even if you can't read, you can still learn the words. So the words go like this. We are going to a place where music falls and fills up everything. And though it might be a long time, I know it's gonna be all right. 'Cause we've already started to sing. All right, and the tune goes like this. We are going to a place where music falls and fills up everything. It's tricky. Falls and fills up everything. Let's put that part together. We are going to a place where music falls and fills up everything. And though it might be a long time, I know it's gonna be all right. I know it's gonna be all right. 'Cause we've already started to sing. 'Cause we've already started to sing. All right, let's do that second part all together, and then we'll put the whole thing. And though it might be a long time, I know it's gonna be all right. 'Cause we've already started to sing. All right, the whole thing together. We are going to a place where music falls and fills up everything. And though it might be a long time, I know it's gonna be all right. 'Cause we've already started to sing. We are going to a place where music falls and fills up everything. And though it might be a long time, I know it's gonna be all right. 'Cause we've already started to sing. Man, you can't beat that. That totally unprepped for. Fantastic. We are going to that place with the music. We are getting there fast. Thank you, Steve. All right, we are going to sing one more time as we invite the children and teachers to go off to their RE religious education classes. Let's sing it through once more. One of our first Sundays of the month and is a time when we share the plate and learn about an organization that we believe in. And so we got a little bit of a precursor there from John McClain, but I'm excited to invite Claire Renaud up to tell us a little more about Days for Girls and why it's important to support their work.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to Marge and Renew and the social ministry group that has been supporting the mission of Days for Girls, and for their invitation to us to join you today at your service. And we really appreciate being able to be here with you on this weekend of Thanksgiving. My name is Claire Renaud, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Northwest Suburban Boston Days for Girls chapter. Days for Girls is an international organization that is seeking to turn menstrual periods into pathways for girls to stay in school. There are over 500 million women and girls of reproductive age that do not have access to ways to manage their menstrual periods. For girls, this often means missing school. And we know from the research that girls' education is the single most important factor for family well-being and community well-being. Days for Girls was founded about 10 years ago to solve the problem of access to menstrual care and education, and to shatter the stigma that women and girls often face when they menstruate. Days for Girls has designed reusable, washable menstrual care and shields. And I can show you what they look like here. These are the shields and the pads. You can see that they're beautifully designed. They're reusable, they're washable, and they were designed in ways to be sort of culturally and responsive to communities. When they're washed, you can actually hold them up and put them on a line, and no one's going to say, oh, that's a menstrual pad. So that was one of the things that was really important. I think there were some 29 designs that have led to this particular design. And we put them together in kits, and each kit has 8 pads and 8 liners and 2 shields, along with underwear, washcloth, bag for using to put water in so that they can be washed, and some soap as well. There are over 900 chapters and teams that around the world that are making these kits. And to date, there have been 1.5 million of these kits that have been distributed in 141 countries. In addition to the chapters and teams, there are also social enterprises that are supported, so that women are being trained in the countries where they live and in their communities to sew and market and these kits so that they can earn a livelihood and provide education for the girls in their community. And one of the exciting things that's just happened is that Days for Girls is partnering with World Vision, which is a relief organization. We've actually collected 44,000 kits from all the teams and chapters around the world to go to women and girls in refugee camps. And that's in Lebanon, Afghanistan, South Sudan, and Somalia. So our chapter has been in existence in Northwest Suburban Boston for about 5 years. And we have actually made about 1,600 kits and distributed those, both with organizations that are involved with our chapter and sent to other places as well. It costs about $3 to actually put together a kit. In addition, our chapter has been very active in supporting enterprises. We've supported about 6 enterprises in Uganda, Kenya, and in Eswatini, which used to be Swaziland. And we've given about $7,000 in donations to help with buying sewing machines, flannel, and other materials that are needed to put the kits together, and to provide for transportation costs and training. So it's been an honor to be part of this amazing project, and I want to just really thank John for coming forward and mentioning that Kay McLean, who was involved with our chapter from the very beginning, and she was really our master serger. She made over 3,000 liners. That was her specialty. She really loved to make the liners, and actually their family and the friends, we had a campaign this past year, and we were able to purchase 3 sergers to support women in country who are in Eswatini, actually, to be able to have the machine and the tools that they needed in order to make these liners. So we're really thankful for Kay and her family and all her friends, and we miss her a great deal. I'll be at coffee hour after, and if anyone wants to look at the kits or ask me more questions about Days for Girls. And again, thank you so much for your support and inviting us.
Thank you. I love the creativity and the many ways people can support. So we will now collect our morning offering, knowing that half of it goes to Days for Girls and half of it stays here to support the good work of this congregation. Thank you. When I was 6, I came down with what my mother assured me was a 24-hour stomach bug. I was very disappointed that I was sick because I loved going to school as a little kid, and especially because my big dance recital was coming up. I went to a performing arts magnet school in kindergarten and first grade. And in dance class, we were going to be doing a ballet performance based on The Wizard of Oz. And I was going to be part of the rainbow for Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and I was purple. And I was very excited about being purple. I had a purple leotard and a purple tutu, and I didn't want to miss out on that. So after the requisite 24 hours that I was told this bug would last, I decided I was better, and I went back to school. And not so shortly after that, I was immediately sent home because I was still very ill. I'll spare you the details. I couldn't understand. I was told this was going to last 24 hours, and here it was, and I was still sick. My mom felt very bad about her misjudgment of the situation. She took me to the doctor. The doctor confirmed it's a virus, just wait it out. And so we went back, and there I was waiting. I waited a little longer, decided I felt better. It's time to go back to school. And then once again, got sent home, this time with a very firm message from the teacher to my mother: do not send her to school until she has been well for at least 24 hours, and you are sure. It wasn't really my mom's fault. I was pretty good at convincing people of realities that I believed in. And I believed that I was well enough to go to school and was not going to miss my dance recital. Unfortunately, that's not actually how things work. I often find that I am in a similar situation now as an adult, not with willing myself to not have the stomach flu perhaps, but willing that maybe that traffic will move more quickly if I really believe it. Or thinking that maybe I can somehow magically make a task take less time than it does take because I don't have the amount of time it actually takes and I have to get going. I feel like this is a common phenomenon throughout my life, and perhaps you can relate, of simply being in a kind of denial and willing time to be different. It's that wanting it to be different that was discussed in the opening reading that he calls aversion. Now, patience is perhaps an antidote to this type of aversion. And the etymology of patience has to do with being a patient, like I was when I was little and sick, suffering, enduring, patient. And I want to be clear as we explore this concept of patience that I do not have a theology that is big on suffering. There are theological traditions that put a lot of emphasis on suffering, that it is good for you, that it builds character, that it is somehow redemptive. And I don't believe that. I don't think there's anything good about suffering, but I do know that suffering is inevitable. That's a part of Buddhist teaching, that life is suffering, life is pervasive unsatisfactoriness, as I was once told by a professor when studying Buddhism. And it is like that wave that we heard about in the opening reading. The wave is coming, and if you pretend it's not coming and will it to just not be a wave, it's probably not going to go very well, just like it didn't go very well when I went to school with a stomach bug and willed myself to not be sick. So patience does then involve some level of acceptance of suffering. At least it involves not running away, not having on our aversion where we try to frantically do this and that so that we can pretend whatever's happening isn't happening. But it's also not resignation. When I was in this situation, when I was little and sick and missing my dance recital, we decided that we would make the best of it. And so my parents decided that they would have a special time for me to perform my dance in my purple tutu and my purple leotard. And they put the music on, and they filmed it with the big video camera that my family collectively owned, all of my aunts and uncles had pitched in for. And so we still have on film little 6-year-old Annie finally over the stomach flu, dancing her purple rainbow part of the dance all by herself in the living room. That didn't necessarily make it okay that I missed my dance recital. It was still really a big bummer. But it also wasn't that we just gave up and laid down and said, well, this is this. And I think that that's an important piece of patience. There was a piece where I needed to trust my immune system was doing the work, needed to allow it to do the work, not rush and force. And this is a good thing when we can trust the progress. When we're trusting our immune system to heal, when we're trusting the mechanics to fix the plane, trusting that the other drivers will drive when they can and that honking isn't going to help, trusting that when we're doing some kind of a project that the people are working on their parts. But what about when you can't trust the process? This is when patience becomes a lot more tricky. Because I think that patience can also be misused, can be turned against people when they are told to sit quietly and wait their turn. In 1988, AIDS patients wanted the Food and Drug Administration to grant more access to an experimental drug. But the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, wouldn't even discuss it. And so the activists converged on the FDA headquarters. This is a quote from an article about the experience. One group were wearing lab coats that were stained with bloody hands. Other people brought tombstones that they made and laid down in front of the buildings and held up the tombstones, dead from FDA red tape. The activists advanced in rows, blocking the entrances. The demonstration made national news. Within days, the FDA agreed to meet. In a couple months, officials opened up the policy on access to experimental drugs. This, of course, was the group, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, otherwise known as ACT UP. And it was a group of mostly gay people who mostly had HIV and AIDS, who were fighting the policies that told them that they needed to be the silent suffering kind of patient. Stay out of sight, stay out of mind, wait and suffer. And they said no. And I think this is a very important piece of patience. Because patience does not mean accepting injustice. And patience does not mean that we accept an overarching situation that should not be so. However, patience does involve a certain amount of acceptance. Those who were fighting this fight were grounded in reality. In fact, some of them had a deep and intimate knowledge of the reality, and I'm sure that some of you also do. I was only 3 years old in 1988 when this demonstration happened. I have no memory of hearing news about or living through the AIDS crisis, but many of you were alive. And you may have your own memories. You may have loved ones that you had to say goodbye to in that time. People were grounded in a clear understanding of what was happening, that the government was refusing to act, that the corporations were refusing to act because these lives, the lives that were being affected by this disease, were deemed unworthy. Because this was happening to gay people and drug users and black people, it didn't matter to the powers that be. And so people had to make it matter. And I think that's an important lesson to remember today on World AIDS Day, but also in this context of patience. Because ACT UP has this reputation for being very confrontational, in your face, as another description reads, in a series of dogged theatrical actions, ACT UP shut down the New York Stock Exchange and jumped on screen during Dan Rather's CBS Evening News broadcast. They chained themselves inside pharmaceutical corporations and scattered the ashes of AIDS victims on the White House lawn. They even draped a giant condom over the front of an ardently homophobic Republican senator's home. The prophylactic was stamped with the slogan, "Helms is deadlier than a virus." Helms being the senator, Jesse Helms. It may be odd to think of such actions as patient, because we often think of patience as passive. But I like to think about these as being actively patient actions. First of all, because many of these folks, as we said, were patients, people who were directly affected by the disease, but also because I think it had a really beautiful balance of accepting the suffering that existed, but having a vision for what could and should be that they wouldn't give up on. And I think that at the end of the day, that is the kind of patience that we all need. The kind of patience where we can accept without being averse and running away from the reality, but also hold that vision for what could and should be. Sometimes the vision is very, very far away, and we know that we are not going to get there, or that it's going to take a really long time. And I think those activists knew. They knew that they couldn't just have one protest and boom, all of a sudden everything would be fixed. But yet they never let go of the vision just because they were over here. And that's the other piece of the patience, is the endurance. And I find that can be very, very hard. When I'm trying to move towards a change that is far away, whether it's a personal change, like trying to change some of my very deeply ingrained habits, or a social change, like trying to change our really broken immigration system, it can sometimes feel so demoralizing that I just want to give up completely and let go of the vision and fall into that resignation of, yes, it is like this, and I'm always going to be a person who manages time poorly and forgets my keys, and we're always going to be a country with this horrible, racist, intolerable system. But patience requires that you keep moving, that you keep seeing the end goal, that you keep allowing for the healing, the change. And I see that you all do this. I see you doing it when you say, here we are, using up fossil fuels at an alarming and terrifying rate. Here is the vision for a world of sustainability, and we can take movements towards that vision that are grounded in reality, like putting up solar panels. I see you doing that around issues of inclusion, saying, here we are, mostly cisgender people, mostly white people, mostly straight people, mostly older people. But we have a vision of a beautiful community that includes people of many identities, abilities, ages, and we can move closer and closer. And I see you doing it on a smaller scale too. I know that in your lives, you are working through all kinds of different issues, accepting what is and moving towards your home being renovated, your loved one recovering from surgery, learning a new skill, a new way of being in the world, like little 6-year-old Annie getting the flu and getting well again, dancing in the living room recital. Patience is that difficult balance. Acceptance without resignation, realism without losing hope. And it is indeed a practice. As was suggested in the opening reading, it is something that we need to practice to unlearn all that we've been conditioned to do, the ways we've been conditioned to run away from reality and be in denial, or demand that someone fix it but be demanding towards the wrong way, or to give up completely. We need to practice, maybe by meditating on a plane, maybe by going to a protest over and over, even though it seems change won't come. Maybe by trying one more time to change that habit. Maybe by giving your body the time to rest and heal. But we can find these ways to practice in everyday life this type of patience. Because the more we can cultivate this particular kind of patience, the easier our lives will be, and the better we can move toward our vision, that one we hold on to and don't let go of. And the easier we can move towards the world that can be, and that I think will be. We are going to a place where music